evening and welcome to another edition of the Business and Banking Dialogue Show. Before I start, I profusely apologize for the delay in starting this program by a couple of minutes. Almost 3 minutes we are late because we had some technical difficulties. Sorry about that, participants. We hope to make it up. As usual, we are live on EBS social media channels, namely YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm KK, your moderator. After many shows on finance and payments, we are trying to get off some other topics too close to the corporate, finance, and the economy also. Yesterday, we discussed with Brigadier Sanjay Agrawal on the geopolitical changes that would affect the Indian economy. It was well received by all the participants, and actually we ran out of time. Today is no different. Today, we are discussing about women empowerment for changing boardroom dynamics. Ladies and gentlemen, despite continued efforts to improve boardroom gender diversity, women are still largely underrepresented on corporate boards globally. Some statistics, maybe a little year late, but a year old, sorry. Women hold about 17% of the board seats worldwide. Women hold about 5.3% of board chair positions and about 4.4% of CE roles globally. Women hold about 12.7% of CFO roles, a little more than the CEOs. The number of women running Fortune 500 companies had hit an all-time record of 37 in 2018. So it must have gone up by a few numbers. But if you compare that, 20 years ago, there were only 2 female-led companies in the Fortune 500. So that's the kind of major gap we are talking about. Let's look at India. 60% of the Nifty firms, the Nifty 500 firms, had just one woman on board. And that was the law mandate as of fiscal 2019. 31% had 2 women on their boards, and only 5% had 3 women or more than 3 women by March 2020. So to discuss on the topic of gender diversity in the boardroom and empowering women for changing the boardroom dynamics, please join me in welcoming Sushma Kaushik. You will see in a few minutes, a few seconds slide about her. Sushma is a partner at Avishkar and brings with her 18 years of diverse experience in the field of early stage investing, small business incubation, and consulting across various sectors. There you see in front of you is a slide about her. You can read that. Sushma has worked to identify, manage, and exit large number of companies and has worked closely with several inclusive business entrepreneurs. She has been our guest speaker for 2 or 3 occasions, and largely been welcomed by all of you. So please join me in inviting and welcoming Sushma to the show. Good evening, Sushma. How are you?
Hi, KK. How are you? Thanks so much. It's lovely to be here always.
Yeah, same here. Good to have you here and welcome to the show. Sushma, the concept of women directors and independent directors was introduced through Companies Act 2013. I think 2013 is the Companies Act. It prescribed a certain class of companies as prescribed shall have at least 1 woman director on its board. This was an act where both independent directors and women directors were as per law made. Another woman, but largely still there's a gap. Another woman's day will come and go, yet gender equality continues to be an issue. It is going to be almost a year since the Kotak Committee's recommendation to have at least 1 woman independent director on the boards of top 500 companies based on the market capitalization that came into effect. Yet, sadly, as of February 26 this year, 44 companies are yet to fulfill that condition. And 150 of them don't have a woman independent director on the boards yet. And this lag is spread across various sectors. So what, according to you, is the problem? And what needs to be done to bring about a deep-rooted, any systematic change in boardroom dynamics?
Sure. So, KK, I think you picked a very sore subject for women, especially because, when I was told this topic and I shared it in my, social networks, the kind of feedback I got was, something that I have never got before. And, suggestions started pouring in. People started complaining about the kind of challenges that they face. And I was, quite dumbstruck to see the kind of feedback I started getting just by posting the topic of today's discussion. So clearly, there are a lot of people who want, to see change and hopefully in the right direction. And, some of the numbers that you said, it's from a Deloitte report and it's slightly dated, but I don't think too much would have changed if they were to do a survey today. But, the silver lining in the numbers that you said is that while the representation of women in India is low, I think you mentioned close to 16.7%, which is slightly higher than the global average. India is probably one of the better markets for women in board positions when compared to any of its Asian counterparts. So whether you look at China, whether you look at Hong Kong, Indonesia, I was just looking at those numbers. India, the women representation is better there. So that's the good news. Now coming to where the problem is, right? And the problem is actually, if you look at the other two numbers, how many women CEOs are there in our country? How many women CFOs are there in the country? These are just two lead indicators to show the kind of involvement women have in key management positions. So India has close to 6.6% of the CEOs are women, and only 2.5% of the CFOs are women in our country, which begs you to think that what are we doing so significantly wrong that we are not able to get or attract women in senior management positions. It's not like women are not qualified. I can speak from my own experience. When I was doing my engineering, my class was a 50-50 split of men and women, right? Where did all those brilliant women go? And also, all the toppers across the batches were women. Where did they go? It's not like they're off the work stream. It's just that they probably have not reached a certain position or never have had the opportunities open to them. Because whether we like it or not, it's largely a male-dominated workspace, right? And there are very few mentors or sponsors, so to say, for women in leadership. And also, there are very few role models for women to follow, to say, I think I will follow this path going forward. They don't even have someone to guide them forward. So those probably are the challenges. And, the fact that you're not able to see women in senior management roles will only percolate down that you will not see those many women in other leadership roles. And then you will not see so many women in the board roles because they are not qualified enough to be there. So those, in my view, and also based on all the feedback that I got since morning, is probably the reasons why we don't get to see too many women.
This problem is looks like it's across the globe, right? It's not only India, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's look at some other thing. The UN's ambitious program, Planet 50/50, as it was called, by 2030 to achieve gender equality and empower women in all areas, including businesses, will bring transformative shifts, integrated approaches, and inclusive decisions. Can India assimilate such changes swiftly, and how can it play an active role?
See, what does assimilate these shifts actually mean? Where does one begin, right? How I think the problem is more deep-rooted to say, how do we include women in our workforce at every level, right? And that's when one can achieve some kind of gender diversity or diversity of any form, is when you're far more inclusive. There's enough data and statistics to prove that diverse teams have delivered better than very uniform kind of teams, right? And I mean, it's quite clear that different perspectives, different opinions, different ways of approaching problem solving can probably help a team better than a very unified approach or a very homogeneous approach to solving problems. So even the SDG guidelines talks of gender diversity and harmonizing that big gap that we have. But looking around, we find that it continues to be very underrepresented. There's really not much push. Yes, you did mention that the regulators are pushing for women directors, and that you're talking one woman director in a board, probably with 10, 15 men sitting around, which itself can be a very daunting task. And also, unfortunately, just because it becomes a compliance issue, women, whether they have the ability, whether they have the skill set, are just placed in or planted in a board for the sake of compliance, which again destroys the value of or the intent behind the policy itself. So I think it's more deep-rooted, how to go behind the intent, how to promote it. So if you look at certain Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, they have shown some fantastic results in terms of gender diversity. Most of them have upwards of 30%, almost touching 40% of the women on boards. And also, I guess it's a very cultural thing. They are far more, uniform or open to diversity, and also their companies continue to do well. They are more socially responsible companies as well, and that is one element that has, or a parameter that has come out, that wherever there has been women on board or women in management roles, the company tends to be more socially responsible. So those the policymakers need to push intent more. So for example, in Norway, the regulator has threatened to dissolve companies who don't have at least 3 women directors, right? I mean, I'm not saying go to that extent, but I'm saying that there has to be a stick somewhere to motivate people to get the right directors on board.
But so you talked about such regulations, and the government should push. And so whenever government pushes, it will start pushing with penalty if you don't do this, or like what you said in Norway, 3 are there, or if those kind of things will come. And those are like coercive tactics. I think there needs to be a mind change to get this into a kind of it's just a way of doing business. Shouldn't that happen?
Absolutely. And so I think it's important to recognize who are the stakeholders who can drive such a change, right? So one key stakeholders are where large pools of capital are residing and who are, who control the purse strings. And if they are more aware and are more open to things like this, then they can be the agent of change. So we are seeing this as investors as well, that a lot of our investors or LPs that we call them are pushing for the cause of gender diversity. Not just in companies, but also in investment funds like ours as well, to promote more women to come in to the workspace, more in senior management roles, because they do know that things will percolate down. So if you encourage more women to come to senior levels, they will probably start bringing in positive change along the various parts of the organization as well. So it starts from the top, unfortunately, and if things have to move in the right direction, people who control the purse strings are probably best placed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So One thought that has come is that which I read somewhere, is that women directors often seem hesitant to voice their thoughts, particularly if they are vocal men. Very men get vocal, of course. If there are vocal men who dominate the discussion, do you think this happens, that they then just kind of contain themselves? They don't want to talk until a question is asked to them. Is that
Sure.
a feeling that you get?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's also a very a gender specific challenge
Yes.
that many women face, right? They might probably be very qualified. They probably know the subject better than anyone sitting in the room, but women tend to, sit back and wait for a chance.
Yes.
Someone just sent me a link saying it's called the Tiara Syndrome, where women just tend to keep their head low, do their
Yeah.
work meticulously, do work fantastically, and just wait and hope that someday someone will recognize them and put the tiara on their head, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the sad truth about the way probably women across the globe are brought up, or being told from very early on that that's how they need to be in a certain way. And and something similar probably unfolds in boards. First, one of the biggest problem even I have faced is whenever I am inducted into a board, I am reminded multiple times that I am inducted as a woman director on the board, right? And
Okay.
so what does it mean to me? It means that, you probably don't have the ability, or you don't deserve to be here on your own, right? And because you're a woman, you are on the board. So that just kind of, sends a very wrong signal to, and this has happened across the board. I probably am among the younger women on board. And so if something like this happens to me, I'd probably be able to course correct. But from what I understand, I've spoken to a lot of my senior colleagues, and unfortunately, even at their levels, they face similar challenges, right? To be reminded every single day that you're a woman on the board, it only goes to say that, do they not have their capability of being there on their own? And so that is really sad, and that needs to change. To recognize the women that you're bringing on board as people who can add value to your company, to your stakeholders, to your shareholders. That should be the first important recognition in bringing in the right talent. And that's when women will start speaking up.
Yeah, but it will change. I think you people are perhaps the first set of leaders, the catalyst that will change. So you have to undergo that problem. But just like in Wimbledon, you never had a women's tennis, and then now it's like as good as the men's tennis. You have IPL only for men. Now you have IPL for women also coming. It's just a matter of time that things change, perhaps, and that's what I look at it. So, Sushma, while you're talking, we have a participant who has already sent you a compliment. She says, her name is Pratima G. She says, Sushma, you are definitely a role model for many out there. Already. So,
I can only
it's a great
try.
compliment.
I can only try.
Yeah, you can only try, correct. But I think I kind of agree with Pratima. Yeah, and people like you, there have to be leaders for everything, and the leaders take it chin up, all that comes. But I think the people who follow the leader, then make it big time, and you find a lot more people out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a topic which is a little diverse than what we generally bring on a weekdays, but it's also very topical. It's something very, very important. If we feel that all the reforms that RBI and the government is to bring for the economy is good for the economy, gender diversity and empowerment of women is absolutely a must for the economy. If we have to progress as a country, that empowerment of women, and in the empowerment of women in the corporate board, is extremely important. And that's why we have picked up this topic, and we are talking to none other than Sushma Kaushik on this. Sushma, my next question to you is, as per a recent World Economic Forum report, women in India account for only 14% of leadership roles and 30% in professional and technical roles. What are the strategic insights to close this big gap?
So as I mentioned, that these things can only be pushed from top down, right? So that's where we tend to play a small role in trying to bring more women not only into the workforce but also in senior management roles. I'll just talk about a small incident that happened, which might sound funny, but it had a very deep-rooted sentiment behind it. So when I was on a board of a tech company, a very young startup, and mostly men, obviously, and it had very few women in the workforce. And so, and they were on a hiring spree. And I said, I do hope you do bring in women in the mid and the senior management roles as well. And there was pin drop silence for a moment. And they said, but we have 50% women in the call centers. So that has to change. That the thought process has to change, that women are beyond sitting in some call center being a faceless entity, right? And of course, me myself being a woman, there's only so much I can push, which I do push very vocally, but it is incremental. The change is small. It'll take time, but hopefully the change will happen.
Are we having some problem with the network?
Can you hear me? Yeah, KK, am I audible?
Yeah, you went off for a, yeah, now you're audible. You went off for a minute or so.
Yeah.
Now you're audible. Yeah, go ahead, continue.
No, so all I was saying is that the change is small and incremental, but change is going to happen. It'll take time.
Yeah, these are kind of not changes that will happen overnight. Even if the government push comes, like we see in the push was already there by the government, but adoption is slow. But I think it will happen.
Yeah.
Do you think that since you are also in the board and in many places, is that do you see as a corporate strategy that women representation in the, forget about the call centers, but in the management and senior level management and middle level management representation, is there a strategy that corporates can adopt, saying that this much we must have as a number of people as women? Do you think that should work?
Absolutely. In fact, in some of the strong boards that I have been party to, and I've learned from observing some of the very strong women who have been on the board, they were relentless in asking them in the MIS to come up with how many people were recruited, of the people recruited, how many were women, and at what levels were they recruited. And it almost became like a quarterly discussion, until the management finally kind of got fed up and said, okay, now we really need to start bringing in more women, because it gets too embarrassing at a board level to discuss this. So those kind of yes, so it takes time, and they were relentless. They went on quarter after quarter asking the same number, till finally they started seeing change. And now the change is for real. The change, it has been a positive change. Now the women who are in the mid levels have now been promoted to senior levels. And now that there is critical mass, they tend to bring in more women into the workforce. So that's a fantastic story of change, of bringing in women at the right levels. It was a strategic decision that was taken, driven by the board, and it has led to a very strong positive change as well.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, I continue to have discussions with Sushma on this topic of women empowerment in the corporate boardroom. Meanwhile, you can send in your questions, and since this is a topic which is of everybody is aware of it, and it's there as a topical topic, could you start sending your questions early, so that I can get across to Sushma as many questions as possible. Let's not have it like a repeat of yesterday, when so many questions came a little late and we couldn't take it up. many of the questions had to be left off because we're past the 7 o'clock mark. So I request you to put it early this time, please. So my next question to you, do you see, you talked about, the roles, and you see a lot, we see in IT, a lot of women coming up, okay? Because IT is a place where I think perhaps there is a lot more gender diversity. You see that happening in any of the big firms of IT, where women representation is much more. I'm talking of the corporate, the boardroom level, not at the the workshop level. Like we see almost a 50-50 around that, But in the boardroom level, do you see a lot many more?
So before I get to the boardroom level, just in terms of sectors or industries, which are the industries that tend to attract more women talent? Yes, IT is definitely one of them. The second we have seen where, a lot of women tend to be comfortable working is in financial services. And also financial services has been one of the few sectors who've celebrated women leaders in that space. And probably ICICI Bank was one of the few to really celebrate all the women leaders who came up over a period of time. And that kind of what motivated many young women, me included, to join the workforce in the financial services space. So that, IT definitely you see a lot of talent getting in technology space. Beyond IT as well, you see a lot of women who are there. And financial services that I mentioned, there's biotech. Biotech is a big area that you're seeing a lot of women get into. So that all this is happening, and it is a generational shift that will take to make changes, more permanent. But these sectors will be there. But like even IT that you mentioned, it's been 3 decades since women have started working in the IT space. But can you name 10 women in leadership roles in that space who is celebrated as role models?
Yeah, may not be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we have. We could just come out with those actual names.
So that says it all, right?
Yes, true. No, I fully agree with you. I think this is a problem, and other than knowing maybe Kiran Shaw, who comes regularly on the channels, the Biocon. I think there are not many women folk that we really can really recollect right at this moment of time. Thank you very much.
And I don't want to put you in a spot, but how many women have you had in this knowledge session yourself?
Well, okay, I'll have to dig in. Yeah, I agree with you. Even if I was to look at, the guest speakers, guest speakers that we have had, the women representation is far less. It will be perhaps the unit digit. Besides you and Lata, I don't think one or other people we haven't. So I absolutely, I admit it. We don't have, and that's a message that goes to us very clearly that we need to get our act together. If we don't, then others can't be blamed about it. So surely we will do something about it. So meanwhile, I have a question coming directly to you from Experience Bank, Harish Prabhu. Harish, can you unmute and ask the question? Harish?
Yeah, Sushma, hi.
Hi, Harish.
Yeah, hi. In fact, I would like to have a different point of view in the sense that, I passed out from my MBA batch. There were 50% of our batch was women. And most of them have nearly reached CEO positions. And, 4 or 5 are, marquee CEOs. Not necessarily only in financial services, in media, entertainment, and what have you, right? And we're talking of, we are in our early to mid 50s. Now, my career, my bosses have been women, my clients, counterparties, my entire team. I had a, I had a 30 people team, out of which I think 26 were women. Now, in terms of, coverage model also, I've from Japan to Bahrain to Sudan to Yemen to Morocco to Lebanon. I've seen very, very senior ladies, right? I mean, in positions of vice president and above. So it is something which is, omnipotent, right? I mean, women have been successful in the corporate careers. Maybe the only exception is that little bit you require to, transition from, your successful corporate career to a board position. Now, obviously, a board position is more of a fiduciary responsibility. I don't know what is it that, prevents, the maybe women, is it what do you call is it their fault, or is it the fault of the overall thing that they don't appoint women? Because in careers, I don't see that today there is any difference in terms of pursuing a career if they are capable, right? I mean, this is my experience. I might be wrong. So.
No, Harish, then kudos to the batch that you are from, to have so many women in leadership roles. It's fantastic that you're saying that that's been the journey for many of your batchmates. We are yet to see that, across the board. Yes, of course, there are sectors like media and entertainment also where women are there, but largely it was, IT, financial services. And coming to your point that, where does the problem lie? Is it in the companies for not appointing them? Or is it in the women themselves who are not out there letting people know that they are qualified, that they are also capable of being on the board? And I think it's more to do with women not coming out and being open about the value that they have to offer. And that's a classic networking challenge women face. They tend to be very insular, as in they don't go out. Even women, like if you look at LinkedIn, it's largely led by posts put out by men, and why is that? One would ask that aren't women doing enough out there? Aren't women, doing wonderful things out there? Then why is it that, as a percentage, of course, there'll always be a handful of women who are out there and putting things out and who are thought leaders. But if I were to ask you, Harish, can you just recommend a few names for a board I'm looking to fill up? I will not be surprised if you give me 5 names of men, right? Because it just doesn't come intuitively to many to share, there are these women who could fit in, who are probably HR experts, who are probably marketing experts, who have achieved a certain stage. But one point is absolutely right that you brought out, that while they have done very well in a corporate role, for you to be on a board role, the kind of the skill set, it's far more fiduciary. It's more important to have a more holistic view on the kind of business that you will be, working with, to understand the dynamics of the business itself. But the idea is to have a board where all different skill sets are equally represented, right? So so why not bring in the experts who can work well in that space? And also, companies are all of different sizes. There are startups, there are mid-sized companies, and then of course there are the listed entities. And I'm sure, that women can fill in at different levels. But why is it that women are not even called to represent themselves on the board? And I think the problem is women don't let others know that they are available or they have a certain skill sets who can help a company go forward.
Sure. You can test me. I'll send you 5 names. Don't worry, separately.
I'll wait for that.
of women. I'll probably send you 10 names.
Fantastic. Now I know who my
thanks.
go-to person is.
Sure, thanks.
Okay. So another question that comes is that he's not mentioned his name, but he says that I come from the corporate world, and he says, The issue perhaps is that the women have not understood fully into the responsibilities of how do you get into board governance, rather than wait to be asked and respond approach. They wait for things to happen and then they respond to it. Yeah, I think that has to change. He agrees that this change could take time, but unless women are asked, he says they don't open up, and that becomes a problem. You kind of subscribe to that.
No, so we've seen that even on boards, right? So there are two
Yeah.
kinds of boards. The egalitarian boards where, it's a very collegial atmosphere where people are generally exchanging information or, their thoughts. And it's a very smooth flowing board. However, there are also the boards that are very hierarchical, right? Where there is a chairman, there is a CEO, and they govern the whole narrative of how the whole board is conducted, and they give chance for people to speak. You cannot be spoken unless it's your turn. And so then in that kind of a structure, the onus falls on the chairman to ensure that everyone, not just women, but the more silent board members also speak up, because it's not that, if someone is quiet or silent, it doesn't mean they have nothing to add. It's just that probably they are wired in such a way that they will only say or speak up when they are asked. And so those are the kind of cultural challenges that we face. And also that's why I brought out the difference between what we are seeing in the Scandinavian countries and what we are seeing in Asian countries, is because that is a very cultural thing where women are, expect to be asked to speak rather than just speak, because then it is viewed as a very aggressive behavior. So that is a challenge, and it is very deep rooted, and it needs to change.
Also, Sushma, do you think it's many of the companies are family run businesses, family owned businesses, and so it's generally their relatives and who are there, either the uncles, cousins, all that, and the government says you need to have a woman there, so they just comply with it. Is this a problem also with many of the family related companies? And there are quite a lot of family related companies.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, a very dear friend who is also in private banking did bring it up to say that only 10% of family-run businesses have women on boards. And I wouldn't be surprised if those 10% are also largely family members who, I don't intend to disregard their capability, but, who are there just because they need to be there. That's it, right? Which is sad, because I do know that a lot of these families have very talented young girls, and unfortunately they are not given the right the right opportunities to come to leadership positions, because that is not what is expected of them. So but that's a very again, as I said, it's a family, it's a cultural thing, it's very deep rooted in cultures, and changing that is going to be very challenging. I think we should start focusing on corporates who are more professionally led first, and then look at solving the problem across.
Yeah, very true. I have a query for you from Mr. Pushpendra Khandelwal, everyday participant in our program. Thanks you, Mr. Khandelwal, for coming again. Definitely, there is a gender inequality, but to empower women, there should be a strong will. My question to you is, if we really wish to create the gender equality, do we need to start it from political level and then pass it on to other areas? Please share your views.
Okay. From a political level, I mean, leadership is leadership across the board, right? Whether it is leading a country, or whether it's leading a corporate, or whether it's leading a startup. It is, I mean, it is a lens that one has to apply. And I mean, if I were to look at it, politics is another industry, right? I mean, Why should it be different in terms of its leadership otherwise? And of course, I mean, if you look at countries like New Zealand, Canada, Germany, where there are strong women leaders, and especially in a COVID time, in a pandemic time, wherever there has been women leaders, those countries have done fantastically well in controlling the pandemic also, right? So clearly, I mean, there's enough data points to support the fact that women are capable, if not better. But how do you change the thought, right? How do you change the majority thinking? And that is where the question or the challenge lies. And to some extent, it's probably, we need cheerleaders. It could be women helping other women, or it could be men cheerleading women to come forward.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Khandelwal. Niharika Agarwal asks a question. Do you think increased representation of women on boards lead to greater integration of women across the organization with equitable practices as employees across all levels, distributors and suppliers? Do you wish to share any seen cases?
Sorry, any
seen cases, whether you have any cases that where you see. Should I ask the question again?
No, I think I get it. You're saying that, representation at the board, which can bring about change in the organization at large. Is that what it means?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did give a few instances and examples as well of how things have changed. It is board driven. And when a board does push for senior management roles for women, that's when, people are more accepting of bringing in women into the fold of leadership. And that's when they start looking for good, high quality leaders in women, and they start training and they invest in their teams to bring women up. And so that is definitely a very positive thing. And as I had mentioned, and I'm repeating myself here, is that you need to push it top down to ensure that diversity is integrated across every part of the organization for this to be more sustainable.
Thanks, Niharika. I hope you got the answer from Sushma on your query. Prabhakar Kaza, who's joining us from London, asks this question to you. He says, I'm also supportive of this cause, but I think you should make a case about what difference women director makes, and it should be twined with the company's agenda. I think a woman as a director norms only dilutes the boardroom meritocracy. SBI has women at all levels in appreciable numbers. Don't think it was ever because it was government direct. He is ex-CEO of SBI. Any thought? Observation?
No. Sorry, I think there was a poor network at my end, but I caught your questions in snippet. So apologies if I tangentially answered your question. Okay. So basically, what my takeaway is, the question is more on the meritocracy of women on boards.
No, so let me just rephrase it for you quickly, because he says that you should make a case about difference a woman director makes, and it should be intertwined with the company's agenda. Selecting a woman as a director to satisfy gender diversity norms only dilutes board meritocracy. He goes on to add, SBI has women at all levels, and that's true. There are lots of women in very good positions in SBI, and I don't think it was ever because it was government directed.
No, absolutely, and I will.
It's just no question asked. Just
yeah. No, absolutely. I think an SBI has been a good stable for women directors. So even now, when we are looking out for women directors, the first port of call is the banks, and more specifically SBI, because they are the ones who have actually invested in women leadership. And groomed them to make them board worthy. And absolutely, I am not for a moment hinting at diluting the board quality by just pushing for a woman agenda. The point is, the limited point we're making here is that there are women who are talented. There are women who have capability. A board requires all kinds of representation, whether it's legal representation, financial accounting representation, investment representation. And I will find it very hard to believe if I'm told that women are not available in those functions. And so the challenge that the board has is in identifying the right women to fit in these roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you would ask the question you asked me to Mr. Kaza. How many SBI chairmen have been women, other than one we know? How many of them have come in so many years of SBI's existence? But that's another question to be answered later on.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yes.
Okay, so Sushma, what is the methodological approach for companies to accept the huge change when their boards are mired in the fixed ideas of traditional mindset that prevent them from taking up ideas or approaches just because they come from women?
Sorry, and so the question is?
What is the methodical approach for companies to accept the huge change when their boards are, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so this is definitely a challenge, right? So whenever women directors tend to come up with solutions or suggestions, it is, I mean, to put it very bluntly, is sometimes disregarded just because it probably has come in from a woman director. And however, where I have seen it work is when women directors especially are more assertive in making their points, are very logical and analytical in laying down the reasons why they are suggesting something. So it comes from being a very thorough board member and not someone flaky who's just generally talking off their head. So there's a significant onus on the board member to be more assertive and also to be more persistent. While getting a point across and reminding the management that probably this is the right approach to take things forward till eventually the management complies.
Okay. Let's have another audio question coming directly to you. It comes from our own Tiara from Chennai. Tiara, go ahead.
Hi, Sushma. It's great. It's glad to see you on our platform. And from the time we had seen in our own company, it was just when you visited as an investor, prospective investors, and today you are sitting on many boards. I have seen your evolution as you are a role model for many aspiring women professionals to be on board. My question is, are there enough database around of prospective women professionals who would like to take up board positions? Is there any such body or website or any entities available to meet the aspirations of women professionals to come on board of various companies? I have great thing for women professionals, including Rama Bijapurkar, Vinita Bali, of course, Indra Nui types, and so many people. So what's your take and views on this, on the database of women professionals?
So, I have also been hearing of the need for such databases. And very recently, I've also been told that in different pockets, people are putting together database because it's not just an India challenge that we are facing where there are not too many women for boards. This is actually a global problem. So even my European counterparts have similar challenges because like, for example, many of the DFIs are pushing, the development finance institutions are pushing for women on boards. And when they look around, they find it extremely challenging to find the right skill sets for board levels. So there are some databases being put in place globally as well for women on boards. I'll be happy to share a few names with you.
Thanks, Sushma. Yeah.
So let's look at the India issue. To discuss equal representations in boardroom, India has only 3 firms which have over 50% women. Maybe it's gone up more here. What are your expectations and how can this meager percentage go up? Sushma?
I think the first hurdle is to get at least 1 woman board member in every board. And hopefully all these women are very strong, eligible women who will promote the need for more women directors. And, you know, from 1 woman director, hopefully one day we will have a 50-50 board. I'm not saying it could be a majority women, a 50-50 board with gender, because what I just can't understand is, you know, if we are 50-50 in gender across the globe, then why is it that when it comes to boards, it is so badly skewed that even filling in a 30% board is with women is such a big challenge. And so hopefully, you know, that is going to change. And the first change would be to get 1 qualified woman director who deserves to be on that board. And that is where we should begin.
Okay. So you're saying that we should begin to have 1 qualified in every board.
At least 1.
At least 1. Okay. But that the laws of the company does make it mandatory, right?
Yeah, but those are, of course, the laws make it mandatory, but they are more in all the regulated entities. Okay. And for all the smaller entities, it's not that important.
Okay. So maybe one of the areas which to look up is perhaps the startups. You know, startups are young kids generally, okay, young kids who have just come up, and so maybe that's one area I think we should focus on, because they are going to become the big companies of the future. As per RBI survey between November 18 to April 19, only 5.9% of all startups had only female founders, and 43% had both genders. So 43% had both genders. That's a good sign. What is your view about growing startups culture, and how can the founders be more inclusive in considering women for top jobs or board positions?
Yeah, so I mean, coming to women in entrepreneurship, I was also very surprised to see the kind of low ratios that we are seeing in women, especially women in tech, right? Because we started off saying that technology as a sector has an ability to attract a lot of women. So why aren't there those many entrepreneurs coming out from startups? And you know, again, it is the lack of encouragement probably, or fear, or societal pressures that kind of hold them back. So we do find a lot of startups which have co-founders who are women, but the lead founder typically tends to be male, which is a good starting point also. The other areas where we are seeing that one can be a catalyst for change is in women-focused funds or gender-focused funds. So there are investors who are seeking out high-quality women entrepreneurs and backing them with capital as well. So that again gives a lot of confidence to the otherwise battered lot, who, you know, if someone is able to tell them that if you're able to do well, we will be able to back you with capital, which for many male founders is a given. They don't even think twice about it. But for women, that's a big vote of confidence for them. So that's an area that is very quickly changing as well.
Okay. My next this thing is, so you're saying that in the startups there is a good hope. Is that what you see, a good hope in the startups?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we are seeing a lot of encouragement, whether it comes from incubators, accelerators, the VC funds focused on gender. Again, a little bit of a push from the LPs as well in more women-focused enterprises. We ourselves at Avishkar also, kind of give a higher weightage for women senior management teams. So it's percolating.
Okay. So my next question to you is directly to you. How do investors look at female-led ventures?
So investors look at ventures, right? And
Yeah.
they evaluate ventures on the merit of the business itself. And when it is led by very strong, high quality women entrepreneurs, then it is like the cherry on top of the icing, right? So we do give significant weightage when the senior management is women. Especially, some of them have been extremely capable women as well, and have gone on to grow their businesses 10-fold, 100-fold. So that gives us a lot of encouragement as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my final question to you, because you come to the 7 o'clock time. One is to have diversity. Say that yes, we as a corporate in a board, we have a complete diversity. But how has the presence of women in boardroom helped beyond this cause of improving gender inclusiveness? Is there any other way that presence of women have helped the boardroom?
Sure. So presence of women have helped, and there are certain data points also to support this claim. That women, one is to bring in more women in the workforce itself, and hence bettering the whole gender diversity narrative at large. But also more important, it's seen that diverse groups, and this is not just gender diversity, just diverse groups of people bring in greater variety of experience, different views, and decision-making processes, which tends to make decision-making far better and robust. And that's why teams prefer being well-rounded in terms of having diversity within the teams. And also, it is also seen that diversity has brought in a lot of social, awareness, and they are more, making the environment. And so women tend to put society, environment, all of these in perspective when they're taking decisions, which sometimes we found that the male counterparts tend to overlook these things. So that's another element that research has shown, that women on boards tend to contribute in this manner as well. And women employees tend to look up to women directors on board as role models. So that also reinforces that the company values and also recognizes the contribution of women at all levels. And probably for these reasons why trillions of dollars is going after ensuring that the gender gap is kind of reduced.
Okay, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we had another very interesting session. Something little away from the general financial talk. Today was on women's empowerment in the boardroom, and we had Sushma herself come and talk about it to us. Yeah, it's the numbers are. If you look at the numbers, their numbers are low, and we need to do something about it. I think whether it is societal, whether it is government, or just that change that we need to mindset change that we need to do to bring about. It's very important. Studies have repeatedly shown that increasing diversity is not only the right thing to do for an organization's culture, it also leads to better business outcomes. And that's even in the COVID era, if you have seen most of the countries which have been led by women, like Sushma said, they have done much better. Okay. Increased diversity leads to smarter decision making, contributes to an organization's bottom line, and powers innovation, among other benefits. With these thoughts, I kind of want to wind up this today's session. Please join me in thanking Sushma for coming and spending a time with us. Sushma, wonderful to have you once again with us, and it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time with us.
Thanks, KK. It's lovely talking to you as always.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, before you go, tomorrow we have an interesting personality who, despite many challenges, has led this payments bank to profit levels, perhaps the only profitable payments bank in the country. Mr. Rishi Gupta, MD and CEO of Fino Payments Bank. His topic is winning in the last mile of financial inclusion. So tomorrow, please do join us with your questions or suggestions and subscribe our YouTube channel, Electronic Payment and Services. Thank you for being part of the entire journey of the business and banking dialogue. Thank you so much. Goodbye.